So don't ever doubt me. I told you this was coming. My buddy Bongino, he told you this was coming. It's here. This moment in time is here. James Comey has been indeed indicted, ladies and gentlemen, for allegedly lying under oath. This is big stuff. And you know what? It comes with a 5-year penalty in jail. I do recall, wasn't it James Comey going on MSNBC and talking about how, that double wide could kind of work for Donald Trump when he was so excited about possibly Donald Trump going to jail? Well, now the tables have turned, have they not? And by the way, there's more people where that came from. We're going to get into all of that. Comey indicted on charges of lying to Congress. Lying to Congress. This is a big, big deal because, you see, it goes back to a 2020 hearing in which James Comey was asked by one Ted Cruz, all about whether or not he maybe encouraged or authorized the actual release of information under the table to the Wall Street Journal. There was some article that was printed, of course, about Donald Trump somehow being a vehicle Putin, right? Because they had this so-called dossier and this so-called tape, et cetera. And he authorized all of that to go through. And what was that about? That was about trying to make sure they set the record straight, right? Apparently, allegedly, this is all because of the Obamagate situation. It's all because Obama gathered everybody in the room and wanted to make sure that they had a narrative to go with. And then when he was asked about it, and he was indeed, I'm going to play you this exact clip, he denied it, even though Andy McCabe allegedly said, yeah, he got approval from his boss. Here's Donald Trump speaking about the issue today, moments ago.
Now, this is about justice. He lied a lot, but this was a very important thing. He could have said, well, maybe, or I don't remember. He didn't say that. He gave a very specific answer, and then he verified it numerous times, and he got caught. The problem that Comey has is he got caught lying, and he was very strong. It's not like, well, maybe, or I don't remember. He gave a very specific answer because it was a very powerful question, a very important question. And when he gave the answer, the only problem is he got caught. So,
and he did a lot of damage in the process. It's interesting that he had his granddaughter, Kai Trump, right by his side as he was giving that information to the press. Again, Comey indicted on charges of lying to Congress. I want to dig into this a little bit because that's the headline, right? So we get a few things to get into today. Why is it that many believe, including my former colleague at both CBS, actually I wasn't at CBS when she was at CBS, but the reporter Catherine Herridge, talented reporter. She was my colleague actually at Fox, and I have tremendous respect for her reporting. She then went to CBS. She had reported on the Hunter Biden laptop. They didn't want her reporting on it. You know the drill. She's over on X now. She's saying, look, there's a lot of evidence there. There's a lot of evidence. So I want to go through some of that evidence with you. But I also want to talk about who's next. And I also want to get into the fact that you've got these Democrats out there, these lefty Democrats that have only one talking point. Hakeem Jeffries comes to mind, trying to say that this is weaponization of the government. Well, what do you think happened, buddy boy, for the last however many years? We had total weaponization of the government. You didn't think this payback was coming. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you're kind of naive. I will tell you this. You know what? Personal story. Donald Trump, I asked him specifically, President Trump, Mr. President, why didn't you go after Hillary Clinton? You know what he said, Trish? I didn't do that because to me, she's the wife of a former president and she was the person I ran against. I didn't want to do that. We're not a banana republic. That's not the kind of country we are. So he didn't. And what happened? Oh, they went after him. They went after him big time. Every single chance they could get. I mean, they indicted 19 people around him. Remember that, including the famous mugshot that Fani Willis was so proud of getting? So you don't think that he now feels a responsibility to making sure that it is important to make sure this stuff never happens again? You better believe he does. And that's something that we actually all should be in approval of because this isn't even partisan. I'm sorry. You know what? You do that kind of stuff, you should be penalized for it. And then there's the basic issue of no, you cannot lie before Congress. And this is what they're getting him on. Okay, so I want to go back to 2020 and I want to show you the exchange between James Comey and Ted Cruz. Now, this is what carries up to 5 years in prison. If he, in fact, did lie under oath, and it turns out that Andrew McCabe had the authorization from his boss, James Comey, to plant this story in the Wall Street Journal, remember about the Russian dossier, then we got real problems. Well, we don't. James Comey does. Watch.
To another topic. On May 3rd, 2017, in this committee, Chairman Grassley asked you point blank, quote, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? You responded under oath, quote, never. He then asked you, quote, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration? You responded again under oath, no. Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal and that you were directly aware of it and that you directly authorized it. Now, what Mr. McCabe is saying and what you testified to this committee cannot both be true. One or the other is false. Who's telling the truth?
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave in May of 2017.
So your testimony is you've never authorized anyone to leak. And Mr. McCabe, if he says contrary, is not telling the truth. Is that correct?
Again, I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
All right, I'm going to make a final point because my time has expired. This investigation of the president was corrupt. The FBI and the Department of Justice were politicized and weaponized. And in my opinion, there are only two possibilities: that you were deliberately corrupt or woefully incompetent. And I don't believe you were incompetent. This has done severe damage to the professionals and the honorable men and women at the FBI because law enforcement should not be used as a political weapon. And that
is all I have to say. Hear, hear, amen. Yeah, I'm looking at your live chat. You liked the skirt in the background. Kind of, giving Ted Cruz a little pizzazz there, shall we say. Anyway, McCabe allegedly, just so we go back, Andy McCabe, remember he was the deputy at the FBI. He allegedly told the DOJ as well as IG investigators that he had approved a media disclosure and told Comey afterwards. Comey's testimony publicly denies having authorized any of this. So it's a little bit weird, right, just in terms of the timing. McCabe allegedly went and leaked all this information to the press, and then he told his boss, and his boss is like, good job. And Andy McCabe has indicated, allegedly, that his boss said, good job. And so now this is where the discrepancy is coming in, because one of them's lying, right? Either McCabe didn't get the thumbs up from his boss, or Comey is lying. So we do, as you see, and as Ted Cruz outlined, we have a little bit of a situation. Now, Comey's like, I'm innocent. It's like everybody's been joking. This is the hostage video. He puts his little camera up right against a wall. I'm innocent, I'm innocent, I'm innocent. Let's give him his day in court, shall we?
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump. But we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees. And you shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right. But I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does.
Okay, here we go. Same old, same old. By the way, I should note that his son-in-law actually resigned from Ms. Halligan's office. I didn't even realize that. You want to talk about incestuous in D.C. Do you realize that the son-in-law of James Comey was actually working for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Virginia? Remember, Eric, he decided to resign. He didn't want anything to do with this. Well, you kind of wonder, is that because your deputy was the son-in-law of James Comey? I kind of wonder. Well, anyway, he's out of there. And now James Comey is on his heels saying, no, I'm innocent and I didn't do anything. But I would say, the walls are kind of closing in. I think so. John Solomon said this a bit last night. I think, do we have the sound of this? I think we do. Let me play you John Solomon from Just the News saying Comey's own people are turning him in.
I think other government officials are in danger of being indicted in the coming weeks, some in the FBI, some in other parts of the government. This is the beginning of a large accountability roundup in government. And I think what's really remarkable, most of my career I've spent uncovering FBI cover-ups. The FBI has a long history of misleading Congress. Comey falls into that. But the evidence against Comey tonight comes from the FBI and its new director, Kash Patel, who promised radical transparency, and he actually provides the key piece of evidence that leads to this indictment. If you're a member of Congress and you've been tired of lying, being lied to by the FBI, tonight's the first time the FBI actually did something about it. They turned in their own man tonight. I think that's an extraordinary part of this story.
It is.
We're going to have a really deep dive into all of this tomorrow, and hopefully all of you will be back with us. We appreciate it.
I mean, it is. It's a huge part of the story, all right? So now the FBI is turning on the FBI, and that normally doesn't happen because the FBI is like all about trying to cover for one another and cover for each other. So this brings up the question, of course, like who's next? Who's next in all of this? Donald Trump seems to think that there will be more coming. I mean, we've talked about McCabe. We've talked about Brennan. We've talked about Mike Morrell. I mean, he's the guy that got that 51X spook letter together that they were going to publish so that you didn't dare think for 2 seconds that that Hunter Biden laptop might actually be the Hunter Biden laptop. I mean, come on, right? I mean, this is crazy stuff. And so there are more heads that are about to roll. Mind you, here's the president speaking about exactly that.
Comey has been indicted. Who is the next person on your list in this retribution?
It's not a list, but I think there'll be others. I mean, they're corrupt. These were corrupt, radical left Democrats, because Comey essentially was he was worse than a Democrat. I would say the Democrats are better than Comey. But no, there'll be others. Look, that's my opinion. They weaponized the Justice Department like nobody in history. What they've done is terrible. And so I hope there are others, because you can't let this happen to a country.
Will you appoint a permanent U.S. attorney to try this case? Lindsey Halligan has never tried a case.
Well, we'll see, but it's a pretty easy case because, look, he lied. You saw my truth today. He lied. It was yes, no. He didn't say, well, in my opinion, he didn't do a lot of things that maybe he should have, but I don't think he could because he lied. That was a very important question that he was asked, and he wanted to be specific, but he didn't. The only thing that happened to him, he didn't think he'd get caught.
Ooh, well, he did. He did, and now it's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly. I want to go back to something. First of all, part of the investigation that was done, and you heard Ted Cruz reference, I was going through some of those files there, talked about how Comey ran his office, and there were suggestions there that Andrew McCabe had been given, or at least thought he was given, the A-OK to move forward and tell the media about the alleged Russian dossier, which then kicked off a whole bunch of nonsense. Let's go back to, I think this is 2017, it may be 2018, on The View, where James Comey actually talked about the need to sometimes lie at the FBI, and that this stuff happens, and while it's not great and it shouldn't happen, it does. And you're sitting there going, whoa, this did not age well. Watch.
Right. So I think J. Edgar Hoover would say you followed the rules, and you did it.
Wait for it.
And you were transparent. I mean, if J. Edgar Hoover had a number of flaws, one of them was he wasn't a transparent person. It was all about secret files. I'm trying to tell a story that in a lot of places doesn't reflect well on me, that's open and honest.
So do you think the future of the FBI is transparency?
I think it has to be a huge part of the FBI because public confidence in the FBI is its bedrock. We have to show people our work when we can, as often as possible, so they have confidence in us.
Even if that means your second in command was fired for lying 4 times. So this is where I think the confusion comes from. Your second in command, McCabe, was fired for lying multiple times within the FBI. You defended his character on Twitter. That's okay. Lying is okay internally.
No, it's definitely not. In fact, the McCabe case illustrates what an organization that's committed to the truth looks like. We investigate and hold. I ordered that investigation. We investigate and hold people accountable. Good people lie. I lay out in the book, I think I'm a good person where I've lied.
Whoa! Good people lie. I've lied.
I still believe Andrew McCabe is a good person, but the Inspector General found that he lied, and there's severe consequences in the Justice Department for lying, as there should be throughout the government.
Okay, all right. So there you go. As there should be. Like, you can't lie. So he's indicted, and now the new question is just exactly what happens next. I mean, you guys, I see you in the chat talking about RICO. You get a whole bunch of people that are kind of coming down around him, and I would say the inner circle is collapsing again, going back to, I think this is John Solomon with my friend Steve Bannon talking about the very issue again.
Well, listen, the truth of the matter is the people that say that James Comey is lying is his inner circle team. It was Andy McCabe who said it first. It was James Baker that affirmed it in an interview with the Postal Inspection Service that we broke on your show a few weeks ago. And in that case, remember what James Baker said to the government. He said that James Comey authorized me to leak classified information to the news media, to his chief of staff, James Rubicki. And then we don't know yet what Rubicki's account is, but I suspect those three men are going to be the main state witnesses against James Comey. It's not going to be a MAGA lawyer. It's not going to be a MAGA talk show host. It's going to be his own inner circle saying, yeah, he authorized us to leak, and yeah, he lied to Congress. So James Comey is going to face justice probably at the expense of his own inner circle, who couldn't lie when confronted about what he had done with the leaking to the media. The Taylor Swift thing, I have a little bit different take. I do find it extremely weird to have an FBI director talking about being a Swiftie, but hey, everyone's entitled to their music. But I think there's something.
He's referencing that ode to Taylor Swift that James Comey did a few weeks ago. Maybe he knew that this was coming, and so he was reaching out to all the Swifties, like saying, I'm going to need your help, I'm going to need your help, I'm going to need your help. Anyway, you know what? A lot of people needed some help back in the day. Look at these 19 people that were all indicted, went through all kinds of HELL, because, including Donald Trump and his mugshot, right? Because of the Biden administration. So before they get holier than thou, and you better believe they are, I already saw Hakeem Jeffries telling CNN, oh, this is so deliberate. They're going after him because this is the weaponization of government. I mean, I just go back to that picture, and actually Mike Benz tweeted this one out. He said, here's 19 precedents right here, you mother, you can fill in the blank. You know, for Hakeem or anyone else, and they're all going to say this is the weaponization, I'm just going to say, remember where it started, okay? Here's where it's going to stop.
Donald Trump and the administration continues to weaponize the Department of Justice. What James Comey did 11 days before the election in 2016 had something to do with the fact that Donald Trump got elected the first time around. This is how Donald Trump repays James Comey? With this malicious prosecution? Like, it's all crazy to me. It's crazy to me.
I'll tell you what was crazy to me. What was crazy to me was that you guys went after 19 people, okay? 19 people in the Biden, forgive me, the Trump administration. It was the Biden administration that went after them. So weaponization of government was there. And by the way, we go all the way back to Obama, right? Because this wouldn't be happening. We wouldn't be talking about any of this if they hadn't decided to go out and use Hillary Clinton's opposition research, paid for by the law firm that worked for her, that went out and hired Fusion GPS, a bunch of investigative journalists that went out and hired a bunch of spies, including a hack named Christopher Steele, who used some of his alleged contacts in Russia, he was former MI6, to come up with this concoction of nonsense that read that it was straight out of the Inquirer. I read it. I was like, how would anybody ever take this thing seriously? I mean, this is a whole bunch of, this is opposition research. This is like something you're going to put in Star Magazine at the grocery counter. I mean, well, actually, it was so bad you probably wouldn't even put it there. But this is what they were doing. So if you think for 2 seconds that we're going to sit down and say, okay, well, like, this isn't going to, I mean, granted, I don't want a situation where the world is like tit for tat, but it's got to stop, right? The buck stops here. And we're going to make sure that this stuff doesn't happen again, because you cannot have politically minded animals going out and doing what they do. For goodness sakes, they were trying to call Tulsi Gabbard, who was a member of our armed services. They tried to say she was a Russian spy. I mean, it just wouldn't stop.
American people elected Donald Trump as their president not once but twice. And yet the FBI and intelligence agencies were politicized by his opponents to undermine his presidency and falsely portray him as a puppet of Putin. Title I of FISA was used illegally to obtain a warrant to spy on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, using a Clinton campaign-funded false dossier as their so-called evidence. Biden campaign advisor Tony Blinken was the impetus for the 51 former senior intelligence officials' letter dismissing Hunter Biden's laptop as disinformation, specifically to help Biden win the election. Former DNI James Clapper lied to this committee in 2013, denying the existence of programs that facilitated the mass collection of millions of Americans' phone and internet records, yet was never held accountable.
All right.
Under John Brennan's
you know what?
leadership.
You got more stuff coming. I mean, the statute of limitations was about to run out, so they had to move quickly on this. There's been a lot of criticism of Pam Bondi surrounding this. Don't forget, just a couple of weeks ago, remember we heard that there was a chance that, gosh, I think Dan Bongino and both Kash Patel were considering possibly resigning from their post because they felt that Pam Bondi wasn't doing enough on any of this. So this story is out there. Again, I want to share with you from the Daily Mail. This is the new person who's running the case. She's there, Lindsay Halligan, and she's going to be taking this on. She doesn't have a ton of experience in this field, so they're calling her Trump's rookie. Let's hope that she does get the assistance that she needs from Pam Bondi. But there are some allegations in sort of the inside baseball world that she's being hung out to dry. I will tell you this, Donald Trump was not very happy with Pam Bondi. Remember, he said, I've received over 30 statements and posts saying essentially the same old story as last time, all talk, no action. Nothing's being done. What about Comey? What about Adam Schiff? Shifty Shift. What about Letitia? In other words, you got to get going on this stuff. And for whatever reason, and maybe it was because Eric was there, maybe it was because you had the son-in-law of Comey there in the office, maybe it took getting the new blood of Lindsay Halligan to get in there and start making some moves. They were running out of time. And so part of this was the essence of, okay, we need to move on this quickly. I don't know if they have the same sort of issues when it comes to one Letitia James. They may have a little bit more of some running room there over those mortgage fraud allegations as well as Adam Schiff, but there's an expectation that she's certainly going to be next. Oh, she looks real happy there, doesn't she? Letitia James. She's on the short list according to many reports because she went after Donald Trump for multiple things, and they're saying this is an infringement on his civil rights. Not to mention, she was just kind of off her rocker, right, in terms of going and getting the $500 million settlement. I'll never forget that one. And then on top of it, you know, those in glass houses should not throw stones, right, Letitia? Because it turns out you got some kind of sketchy stuff alleged on your own mortgage documents. Anyway, this whole thing got thrown out of court.
Fox News alert, a New York appeals court just this morning has thrown out President Donald Trump's massive civil fraud penalty. The decision from a 5-panel group in New York's appellate division changed the original decision that stood to cost Trump over $500 million. One appeals judge calling the lower court's penalty an excessive fine that violates the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution. You might remember that New York Attorney General Letitia James' office says despite this decision, they will not be dropping the case.
Couldn't happen to a nicer woman, right? So watch for that one, guys, very seriously. I think you're going to see a bunch of them coming now, a whole bunch of them. It's all coming at a treacherous time. You get the government looking like it's going to have a shutdown. I hope we can keep these prosecutions moving if we get this shutdown. We've got also Pete Hegseth calling for 100 generals to come in from all over the world for a very special meeting in Virginia. Look, I think that the shutdown thing is going to be quite significant because Donald Trump here.
You saw the numbers yesterday. They're fantastic. The economy's doing well. Prices are down. We have virtually no inflation. Everything's going good. We're respected by every nation in the world. And you know what happened? The Democrats want to shut it down. And they want to shut it down because they want to give billions, ultimately trillions of dollars to illegal migrants, people that came into our country illegally. Some of those people are criminals, but they came into our country illegally, and they want to give them the essential over years, trillions of dollars, and our people aren't going to stand for it. They also want to have open borders. They want to have men and women's sports. They want to have transgender for everybody. These people are crazy, the Democrats. So if it has to shut down, it'll have to shut down. But they're the ones that are shutting down.
Yeah. So it looks like there could be quite a few people shut down in this process. I mean, again, with one of the big sticking issues being that the Democrats want all this health care for illegals, which is just costing billions, if not trillions of dollars. And I think that's a big concern here. Health care is a concern, right? Overall, it's one of the things that the conservatives for lower health care have been looking at. Big Pharma, it's got a big army of lobbyists that are working overtime, working very hard to make sure that Americans are paying the world's highest prescription drugs. Now, Donald Trump is working hard on this to try and bring it down. They've already, however, hiked prices on hundreds of medicines this year alone, while flooding us with billions of dollars in misleading ads. Of course, don't you love seeing those ads on television with your kids? I mean, for goodness sakes, it just makes me cringe and my face gets all red. Anyway, with drugs that you may or may not need. That's the problem. Worse yet, you got Big Pharma pushing government mandates designed to stack the deck in their favor. So the goal in Washington, or their goal, I should say, in Washington is pretty simple. What do? You escape accountability. You block free trade, competition, and you jack up outrageous prices. That means more government intrusion. It means bigger profits for them, higher profits for families and businesses. This is why I love the folks at Conservatives for Lower Healthcare Costs. I love that I've partnered with them on this effort, because we want to warn of the big pharma agenda here that would stick Americans and employers with billions of dollars in higher premiums and drug costs. President Trump isn't backing down. His administration is cracking down on these drug companies that gouge Americans and mislead patients with obnoxious, and sometimes I'm like, is this R-rated advertising? Okay, so join us here. Join us in rejecting Big Pharma's agenda. Go visit pharmawindfall.com. I'm actually going to change this. I think I had Conservatives for Lower Healthcare. We love those guys. But go to pharmawindfall.com today to learn more about all this and figure out how you can get involved, and you can give them a piece of your mind, ladies and gentlemen, because I'll tell you, we certainly don't need higher drug costs. They are working pretty hard at it, but it can't come soon enough. Pete Hegseth meeting, a big meeting of generals from all over the world. They're coming in. They're going to be assembling in Virginia, and a lot of people are saying, what is this? What is this about? And we talked about this yesterday live on the show. I want to be careful in terms of my reporting and speculation on this, but a lot of the thinking is that this may actually be related to what we see going on in Russia right now and his frustration with one Vladimir Putin. In other words, enough is enough, right? And if you know Trump as I know him, and I met him years ago. I think the first time I ever met him was actually when his Atlantic City, I'll tell you when I first met him, was when I was in the Miss America pageant, and he was actually one of the sponsors of the Miss America pageant. And at one point we went to the Trump Hotel in Atlantic City, and we all met him and shook his hand. He doesn't remember that, but anyway, I remember that. I've got a picture of myself with all the Trump billboard stuff behind me. So that was the first time I met him. I would have been about 19 years old or so, maybe 20. The first time I actually really met him and spoke with him and learned a little bit more about who he was actually years later, when his Atlantic City casinos, including the one that I was in the Miss America pageant, declared bankruptcy. And so I was reporting for CBS at the time. And what I can just tell you, as I've gotten to know him over the years, I would say this is a man who really doesn't want to be invoking any kind of war or starting any kind of war or losing lives, but he also recognizes the importance of U.S. power and making sure that we preserve our reputation for having that power. So when you tell Vladimir Putin over and over and over again that you want to end this war, and he wants to end it, why? Because Donald Trump's looking at it and saying, hey, what are you doing? Why can't we just stop killing people and build an economy and everybody makes money and we're all good? Right? Because he's thinking about it very rationally. Vladimir Putin's not thinking about it rationally, in my estimation. I mean, I get, don't get me wrong. I get that he's worried about the incursion, right, closer and closer to Russia with NATO, and it's understandable. I mean, if China starts creeping into Mexico, we're going to get nervous too. But I think at this point, he's like, I've tried. I'm negotiating, and you're not negotiating. And so I think there's reason for us to be a little bit on high alert, knowing that Pete is bringing all of these people in. We'll see what comes of this. I don't know. I really don't know. I'll tell you what else I don't know. I don't know why the heck Sinclair decided to do what it did. Sinclair, right? Jimmy's non-apology the other night for Charlie Kirk. Sinclair Broadcasting has made a decision on what to do about Jimmy Kimmel. And I'm telling you, you're not going to like it. I certainly don't like it. Grumpy Cat likes it. Grumpy Cat, that's what I'm calling him. Yeah.
I'm fine, I don't care. How did Obama do?
Well,
listen,
I don't know when that was taken, but Grumpy Cat is going to get to live another day on Sinclair station. Sinclair has decided that they are going to bring him back. Jimmy Kimmel, who really couldn't even offer a decent apology. It was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. Yeah, duh, buddy, duh. And then he went on to say, nor was it my intention to blame any specific group. What do you think? You actually blamed a specific group. You blamed MAGA for the actions of what was obviously a deeply disturbed individual. To some, my remarks felt either ill-timed or unclear. I get why you're upset. He never apologized. He never apologized to the family. It was not my intention to make light of the murder. Blah, 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 blah. We wanted an apology. We deserved an apology. Half of America loved Charlie. Actually, I'm going to go with more than half of America loved Charlie, okay? Because he was pretty special. And no one can fill his shoes. So there was no real apology. He never said, I was wrong. He didn't acknowledge any defamation or direct misleading statements. Instead, he focused on interpretation. And so Sinclair has made a decision on whether they're going to air him or not. They made a decision, and they are going with airing him. And this, in my estimation, is the wrong decision. I don't know what was going on in terms of background stuff vis-a-vis, was Bob Iger really putting the pressure on Sinclair? Were they threatening legal action? Because don't forget, there's a ton of contracts involved, and if you're an affiliate, you're supposed to take the content that they provide you, and if you don't, that comes with certain consequences. They may also be thinking about it this way. You know what, Jimmy? His ratings are in the tank. I mean, he is already a total disaster. He got like a one-day search, right? Because, people wanted to see what he was going to say. But that's it. Look at this number. Lost 32% among the key demo over the last couple of years. I mean, he's been hemorrhaging viewers. His contract is coming up relatively soon. So to a certain extent, I'm almost wondering here, do we see Jimmy Kimmel just leave more sort of graciously on his way out the door? And that way it doesn't become, about free speech and the president and the FCC. Do they just manage his exit? And was Sinclair part of that? I'm giving Sinclair the benefit of the doubt, I guess. But part of me is really angry with Sinclair right now. We'll see what Nexstar does on this. I'm certainly angry with Disney. You know that. Don't have a whole lot of use for Disney, which is a shame because I actually used to like it back in the day. I really did. Hey, reminder as we go into the weekend, we just put a new piece out on interest rates at 76research.com. I want you to go check that out. It's my company, 76research.com. Use code word dollar. You can get the newsletter for just $1 a month. It's really important. Take ownership of your finances, please. Even if you can only put $5, $10 a week into the markets, you want to be invested in this market. I do think there are good things ahead. I love having you guys all here. 1 million and still growing. Thanks for being here on the Trish Regan Show. A lot more content coming your way over the weekend, and I will see you live right here on Monday, if not Saturday. That's why you're going to hit the bell. See you soon.